I know a lot of folks are just pumping out content via AI, and the only thing that kind of concerns me and what I have to think about in terms of, being responsible for a program at a company is we need to future-proof it. So if we do this cool thing, we may get a lot of traffic early. And then if that goes away, it's a lot bigger problem than us, getting it more slowly over time. So we kind of focus on the long term.
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Hasiotis, and today I'm very happy to be joined by Brian Shumway. Brian is an Austin, Texas-based SEO professional who specializes in marketplace and product-led SEO. He currently leads the SEO team at Upwork and cut his teeth on teams at Indeed, TopTal, ThriveWorks, Software Advice, and Bankrate. Prior to getting into SEO, he spent 10 years as an Army officer. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time outdoors with his wife, sons, and dog, Phoebe. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, George. Happy to be here.
So, I guess my first question is, how does someone jump from the Army to SEO? I don't see the connection, but maybe you will help me see it.
Yeah, it's not a really easy one to make. So I spent 10 years in the Army. I was an armor officer, so started in tanks as a tank platoon leader, and then moved into light reconnaissance and a cavalry squadron. So really not a whole lot of transferable skills outside of the military. But I came back from Iraq and couldn't find a job anywhere. So I graduated in 2008. It's the height of the financial crisis, so really not the best time to kind of come out into the world. But I was a National Guardsman, so we were actually up-tempoed to go to Afghanistan. So everywhere I was applying for jobs, hey, I got to be gone, 5 to 7 days a month, and then the month of June for training, and then I got to get deployed. So I ended up doing funerals for the Army for a while. And then my girlfriend at the time, now wife, got a job offer in Austin, so we moved out here. She worked at an ad agency. So after kind of selling beer and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with life, she suggested I get into PPC. And that's when I ended up at Software Advice, which was later acquired by Gartner. Started doing PPC and then kind of worked really closely with the SEO team. It was like, hey, what they're doing is a lot cooler than what we're doing. So kind of just really fell in love with it there, and then moved into SEO, my next role.
So today you work at Upwork and you lead a team there. For people who have never heard of Upwork before, or may have never used the platform, can you please share a few things about Upwork, what the platform does, and who is the typical customer?
Yeah, absolutely. Upwork is the world's largest work marketplace, and it connects businesses with independent talent from across the globe. We serve everyone from individuals and one-person startups to large Fortune 100 enterprises with a powerful, trust-driven platform that enables companies and talent to work together in new ways that unlock potential. So our mission is to create economic opportunities so people have better lives. And it's pretty cool. I actually used Upwork I was a client before joining. But in business school, we actually needed to find a designer because we're doing kind of the product market fit and pitch competitions and needed assets created. So I actually got to experience Upwork from the client side of trying to hire a freelancer and finding just really awesome talent. The gal I found was in Ukraine and just made it come to life. So I was a big fan of Upwork before joining, and actually worked at a couple competitors. Back in the day, I led the SEO team at TopTal to 15 or 2016 when Upwork came about after being combined from Elance and Odesk. So it's basically a marketplace for people to get work done.
we use Upwork, and as you mentioned, like we have similar experience. Some of our best contractors and people who help us with specific tasks. I mean, they possess very specialized knowledge on something. Top of mind, our Google Sheets, guy, are people who we found, on Upwork. And interestingly enough, I started on Upwork as a freelancer. I mean, many years ago, I was bidding, on jobs for as little as, I don't know, back then, $3 per hour, right? And I started there, and now I experience it as a client customer. And yeah, it's interesting to see the kind of the switch in roles. So you have 2 years almost at Upwork. What would you say are your biggest learnings so far in terms of SEO?
Oh gosh, there's been a lot. I think the biggest one that I've learned is that soft skills really matter a lot in the large kind of enterprise organization. As everywhere, resources are constrained and critical at companies. So being able to kind of justify and acquire those resources to get the work done that you need to get done, it has to cross multiple different teams, product teams, design, just like really strong cross-functional, collaborative, big initiatives. And you really need to have the ability to work with other team members and make sure that our goals are aligned, especially if you don't actually own the resources. So when I got to Upwork, and I'll probably get into this a little bit later, but we were in the marketing department. So there was no dedicated engineering, no dedicated design. It was very much a work with these different product teams and try to get onto that roadmaps. So we kind of moved that into product, and it made it a lot easier to get resources and get on roadmaps and actually execute. But it really doesn't matter what you know if you can't get anything done. So that's been the biggest one, is a lot of work in those soft skills. And then organizational structure it's critical in how the product is implemented. So where you are in the organization, how the SEO team actually interacts with the product itself, whether it be creating content or work on the pages, it really matters where you sit in the organization. And then, of course, relationships are everything. So the engineers that we work with, we're super close with them. We're also super close with the product management partners that we have in different product teams, and can come to them and say, look, hey, we have this issue. You really need to get it fixed now, or we need to get on a roadmap sooner, just whatever it happens to be.
In some companies like G2, I know that SEO is under product. Is that the case with Upwork as well?
It was. So it was a little more loosely defined when I got here. One of the first changes I made was to move us into the product organization, both officially from like cost center perspective, as well as changing our folks' titles to SEO product managers, and expecting that they, attend all the rituals and run the SEO products like a product manager would. So they work directly with creating the PRDs, talking to engineering, getting on the roadmap and executing, which is awesome.
My understanding is that your SEO product team targets 2 different audiences, and please correct me if I'm wrong. The first would be freelancers who are looking for jobs, and the second would be companies that are looking for freelancers, right? First of all, is that right? And if so, what are the challenges and unique characteristics of each of these 2 target audiences?
Yeah, that is pretty much correct. There are 2 sides, but we also have folks like you that are also can be like clients and talent that hires other clients. So it's what I've learned is it's really interesting how different people work. So there's just such a diversity in how people run their businesses or get their projects done. But essentially, yes, we do have a 2-sided marketplace. So you do run into that chicken and egg problem of, okay, to attract freelancers, we need to have jobs. To attract clients, we need to have freelancers that work on those jobs. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we're customer zero. So there are more people working at Upwork who are freelancers full-time than there are full-time employees. So actually my team has more people who are freelancers working full-time than actual full-time employees. So the talent's phenomenal. And to bring the best talent, we need to have those work opportunities. So I think as understanding both sides of the market, when we build the product, we build it with empathy in mind of like, okay, I'm a freelancer who's running my business, or I'm a client who needs to hire. What can I do to just reduce that friction and get people working. It's been really interesting. Really interesting.
Can I ask you, how do you come up with things that people from both target audiences search for online? I mean, I some of them are obvious, like you will use some modifiers that work in your case, right? But how do you generally come up with, all the things that both target audiences are looking for online? And follow up to that would be, how important is Upwork's search engine in understanding what people need and creating pages based on these needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're very data-driven. So we look at Search Console very closely. That's one way that we kind of see what we're getting impressions for. I'm a big fan of Ahrefs, and shout out to Ahrefs, and SEO Clarity for research tools. So we use those quite a bit and really leverage that. But you're right, we do use our internal search. So people are searching for what they need. So we look at that. We have access to those queries and say, okay, well, we're seeing this trend emerge, or we're seeing people search things in a certain way. So we can create those pages that answer those questions or meet that need. We generate pages programmatically, as any marketplace has to. So when we get to that scale, it's really important to kind of understand how users search and what people are actually searching for in Google. So long way of saying, all of the tools that we use, but primarily we're really close to the market and really understand what freelancers and clients are needing and are searching for. And if they search for that on Google, obviously they're going to need it on Upwork. So that's kind of where we come from that.
I would like to discuss programmatic SEO in a while. Before I do that, I would like to ask another question. I saw that since we are a customer, we saw that recently you added a category on AI. I don't know if that's on the side of hire AI talent, or I cannot recall exactly what this is about. But I guess my question is, how did you identify that as an emerging topic and something that people are actually interested in, and we're very fast at getting the page or the category up there? Is that through the process that you described, or is it, some things are just we live in the same world, right? We see that there is a spike in interest when it comes to AI skills.
Yeah, as soon as generative AI came out, so we already had AI as a category. Generative AI is a part of AI, but we saw that when they released it, the SEO team kind of knows. So we saw what happened with NFTs. We've seen these kind of cycles where this new technology comes and then there's just an explosion of interest. So we saw that coming and we created very specific pages for that. So I'm a really big fan of enabling SEO teams through technology to be able to do things themselves, whether that's change your robots.txt or create pages or do these things without engineers, because we need to move fast. So we saw this coming when we moved fast to create those pages, to get those clients, which then create jobs, and then we get Google for jobs. So I think we're doing very, very well in terms of AI jobs. We have, several different types of pages, and AI has been a focus of Upwork, both in the product as well as with, connecting clients who need those freelancers. But you're right, it is challenging. It's a completely new market. We don't know what we don't know in terms of what people are searching. So we actually leveraged a great example is looking at our search. We're saying, hey, people are looking for prompt engineers. That's something that clients and talent are both looking for. So let's create that page. And it's done very well for us, but prompt engineers was not something that we were thinking of back in December. It's just something that we saw the market change. Okay, we need to create a page. So having that flexibility to kind of create these topics or these categories or these landing pages for folks is critical. We've seen just AI related queries increase over 1,000% compared to the fourth quarter of 2022 in Q1. So there's a huge market demand both on the client and the talent side. And I think we've positioned ourselves well to really lead in this area.
But in this case, which page will you create first? Is it going to be, an AI jobs one so that you can get the talent? Or, you understand my question, right? Because
Yes.
I want to understand. It's as you mentioned, going back to what you mentioned earlier, being a chicken and egg problem. I try to understand what is the starting point as soon as you identify as a topic as an emerging one.
Yeah, the starting point for me personally is trying to attract clients. And the reason for that is without jobs on the platform, there are no freelancers. There is no Upwork. I mean, both sides are really critical, but I found that focusing on the supply side and ensuring that we have strong supply brings the strong talent. We also have things on the talent side of the house where, we talked about Project Catalog, where these enterprising freelancers like, hey, I have these skills, here's a set price for what a set deliverable, like I want to do that. So they create these pages, and they're things that we never would have imagined, but it's like actual industry experts who know the technology and know what they're doing. They create these projects as well. So that attracts clients. The category pages that we create also attract clients who then post jobs, which then gets sent to Google for jobs and brings talent.
Do you consider a freelancer creating a job or like a set of a package, I don't know how you call them, or a project or something like that? Do you consider that as UGC, like user-generated content?
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned programmatic SEO earlier, and I would like to hear more about that. I mean, let's say you identify something as a like an emerging topic, right? People are searching for that. Is there going to be a page kind of programmatically created? And if so, how does the process like generally looks like?
Yeah, at this point, no. That may change in the future, but that is something that I have a lot of experience in. And we can talk a little bit about Indeed. Like this is what we did at Indeed, where, they're everywhere. One of the reasons is they've developed a product where as you search, if there is supply, that page shows up. So there are good things and bad things with that. And it's been, 4 or 5 years, she says, I've been at Indeed. But the power behind that is that you're creating pages as like the real-time need emerges. So there's no reason to have to look at things manually or create these pages if in the product itself, the search creates its own indexable page. The problem with that is that Google is very, very strict with quality of your index. So Panda has been something that was really difficult for a lot of different marketplaces, and some of them recovered and figured out what they needed to do, and some of them didn't. But what that really, the big focus should be is like high quality, tight, strict control over what Google indexes, as well as tight control over what they crawl.
But in the case of like a marketplace like Upwork, for example, how would you define quality, right? Is it at the end of the day quality in terms of the freelancers and like in terms of conversion optimization, so you can get the click and like the journey ends there, and like the user doesn't have to go back and search for like click on another result? Or I mean, how do you define it on a very practical level, right? Especially for marketplace, because it's not like you can add a lot of text-based content or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's the quality controls. I mean, that's something that's top of mind for every kind of template that we create. Yes, we can't always control what people put in there, but there are ways in the product that you can encourage people, whether like, hey, this is a required field, or we noticed that, talent that create a longer description sees X% more work, whatever. There are ways to do that, but the way that I think about quality is how much content is on the page. So like when I say quality, I mean, you don't want hundreds of thousands or millions of indexed, like parameterized pages that are the same, that have no canonicals or no index. But if it meets a certain content quality threshold, so those guardrails is something that you create and design into whatever page template happens to be. So that's kind of what I mean by quality, is like, is it robust in terms of, are they filling everything out accurately? Is it something where if a client or talent lands on it, they would take another action or stay on the page or kind of look further? Or would they say, hey, this is empty, this is garbage, I'm out of here?
I get it. You kind of touched on that. But I would like to shift gears a bit and discuss crawlability and indexation. And assume that at Upwork or previously Indeed, TopTal, and so on, you may have encountered such issues and challenges because we are talking about websites with thousands of pages. My question is, what are your learnings regarding that, and how do you optimize your crawl budget and ensure that your most important pages will keep getting discovered, crawled, indexed, and ranked?
Yeah, that's part of the challenge of the job. So Indeed itself, I mean, it's not thousands, it's billions of pages. Like, we're looking at hundreds of millions of pages per country. And that's 60 countries, 28 languages. Like, the amount of data that we had was just massive. So I'm a big believer in looking at log data. Any company that I go to, I try my best to get that kind of load balancer log data, raw, extracted. We currently use SEO Clarity. So that's where our log data is pushed into to kind of see what Google's doing. But it has been illuminating in terms of seeing how Google treats pages at scale. Like, I have learned hard-coded parameters, no, like nowhere. This is the hill I'm going to die on. My teams that have worked with me, everyone can tell you I am a hardcore, no parameterized URLs unless it's added on click via JavaScript, because of course Googlebot doesn't click. But they get confused. Like, Googlebot, everyone thinks that Google's really good at doing certain things, and they're actually really good at certain things and really bad at certain things. And I think crawling at scale, they can get confused by poor architecture or allowing them to crawl things that they shouldn't. So we will constantly look at what's being crawled, frequency of it, status codes. And if there's any, 300s or 400s, 500s, we look at those first. And then we look at the 200s and, okay, is it getting stuck somewhere? But we found that they would get stuck on all kinds of stuff. Or if somebody hard-coded a parameter, they're going to index 60, 100, 150,000 different variations of our sign-up page, for example. So like, fixing those issues at scale is really what helps move our product forward in terms of performance.
Can you please share an example of like a URL with parameters that would lead to Google not following that URL or not like crawling it as often as other URLs that may be a bit cleaner, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, we saw this all the time. At any company, there's hundreds of different teams working on the product itself. And if they don't know, for example, like, we would block a parameter, say at Indeed, and then people would add that parameter thinking that, hey, this is how we're going to track, and not knowing that it was actually blocking Google from crawling it. We also saw a lot of weirdness with like language and location. So a lot of my job at Indeed was figuring out what happened. So, for example, our US site started showing up in the index with Spanish title and like a Spanish meta description. And we had no idea what happened. I think Google's drunk, but turns out that we added a link, the engineers added a link, and part of the language preferences were set in that parameter. So instead of adding it on click, it was added hard-coded, and then Google would crawl that, got confused, and showed our Spanish for our English site. It was interesting.
What other things do you focus on regarding technical SEO and general technical hygiene for a website?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the Indeed answer. We really focus on quality. So having user-generated pages, like, a lot of the job is figuring out how it's going to be abused. And a great example of this was, I think in the summer 2015 or 2016, they had the largest spam attack that I have ever seen. It wasn't covered in any of the SEO media, but somehow spammers I don't even know where they were, but they created billions of pages across the internet on sites like Facebook, Google Maps. They got Dell, all of these places. They figured out indexation thresholds for these really high authority domains, and they started posting things. And if the title came up, they had like, say, Facebook customer service phone number or Cash App customer service phone number. and they would use Cyrillic characters and all those different things. Google actually picked that up at scale and included these spam phone numbers in their in the featured snippet. So people would search Google, see it in the featured snippet, call them, and they say, "Hey, sure, give me the code to, you know, the 2FA code for your Cash App account, or get me an iTunes gift card, bring me the thing, we can get you back into Facebook." Nobody picked up on this except for NPR, of all people, saying, "Hey, don't fall for this Facebook scam." But what that taught me was, okay, we have to reverse engineer how these people are doing it. And they're brilliant SEOs. What they ended up doing was just programmatically generating all of these different URLs, posting them on something like Blogger. Googlebot would then crawl the page, create it, index it, and do that at scale. And I think in looking, I was able to identify at least 800 or 900 million of these things. So a lot of the job was like, cool, let's come up with rules to stop this. And then bake these rules into an algorithm with the data science team that looks at the features of a URL and can determine with a probability of spam. So we productionized the ability to generate spam from these URLs. And they saw what we were doing real time and would change. So they would use different number combinations, or basically trying to break getting around these regular expressions to catch that. But it was just fascinating to see that, you know, years later, there were still examples of the spam in Google. And it hit all of the big sites.
I wasn't aware of all of that. I mean, I didn't know that story. And I think, I mean, as I hear you say all these things, I think about one of our clients, and, you know, they essentially, it is a project that like involves programmatic SEO and doing things programmatically. So I think that this will have a lot of value for people who are kind of in similar situations. Another thing I would like to discuss is that when searching for something like hire a UX designer, chances are that people in, you know, France, Germany, Spain, whatever, will search for something similar in their language, right? So there is a lot of demand, let's say, in other countries and languages besides, you know, English-speaking ones. How do you approach localization at Upwork?
Yeah, right now we're not doing any non-English content. So it is English. We do have some pages that target different countries, our higher pages, you know, with English text. One thing that I learned previously working on multi-language sites is it is a huge opportunity to have multi-language sites. That's something that everybody wants to get to. There's just a lot of complexities in terms of the product of how to do that. But I found a lot of really interesting insights in terms of English it's a universal language. Like even in countries that you wouldn't expect it, you'd see a lot more volume in English than one would realize. So it's whether it's expats living there or folks that are there that just search in English. It's good to have both. I can't speak to any plans for the future in terms of localization or how that works, but I can just say keep an eye on us. It's clearly a very big opportunity, but it's not something that I can speak to at the moment.
What are your thoughts on SG? By the way, for people who are not aware of the acronym, SG stands for Search Generative Experience. It's something that Google introduced in their Google I/O event in May 10th. And I would like to hear your thoughts on whether you're taking any steps or actions at Upwork to prepare for the change.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the same as all the other SEOs. As soon as we could get it, we got in and started playing with it and doing queries in our space to see how it works. And I think it's interesting. I haven't personally seen a lot of value out of it. A lot of the queries that I do are kind of job related or search related for employment. And it's kind of like, I don't want you to tell me about jobs. I want to see what jobs are there. So I don't know if it's great for the current niche that I'm in. But in terms of preparing for it, I think it's the same as preparing for every kind of shift in our industry. There are core fundamentals and basics that will always remain. And there's going to be things that happen and things change. But if you really focus on the fundamentals of like really improving your product, so getting rid of unnecessary redirects, making sure your 400s and 500s are clean, having great content, writing great content, having a strong editorial team, having, editorial standards, and just trying to create awesome content and or improving the templates that you have if you're doing programmatic scaled template areas. It's when you work on these large scale programmatic things, that the best thing you can do is just constantly improve slowly. I mean, if it's incremental improvements, as long as you're improving, you're going in the right direction. And when that happens at scale, it tends to kind of overshadow all of these different changes that really, that there's nothing we can do. Like, it's here. We don't know how people are going to use it yet. So what you can focus on is really, I try to focus on what we can control, and what we can control is the quality of our site. So we're leaning into that.
Speaking of what we can control and the quality of our sites, what are your thoughts on AI content?
Yeah, this is oh gosh. So I think there is a lot of room in content for AI. Personally, with the experiments that I've done and the work that I've seen, I don't trust it to do long form content. And we have a really strong content team here who, we help create briefs. We kind of work with SEO on finding topics and helping write, but the writers are very, very strong. And I think that leveraging AI for things like title tags or meta descriptions is a lot lower risk than like full on content. But I know a lot of folks are just pumping out content via AI. And the only thing that kind of concerns me and what I have to think about in terms of, being responsible for a program at a company is we need to future-proof it. So if we do this cool thing, we may get a lot of traffic early. And then if that goes away, like, it's a lot bigger problem than us, getting it more slowly over time. So we kind of focus on the long term. We're going to grow responsibly, but we're going to do things the right way. And leveraging generative AI in these workflows, like, that is something that we absolutely can do. But I really believe that AI content is a double-edged sword. I think it's quick and easy right now, but it can be dangerous. And I think that SEO folks and content folks that like leverage AI to do their jobs or to make their jobs, to make them more efficient at their jobs is a lot better than using it to kind of replace them.
That's very much aligned with what I have in mind about AI content and what we say to our clients. So I'm glad to hear. I was glad to hear your thoughts on that. Second to last question I have for you. For many years now, people are like, you see this clickbait, YouTube videos or like articles, SEO is dead, and so on. But SEO is still here, right? I would like to hear your thoughts on the future of SEO. If there is, if there is actually a future for SEO professionals, and if there is, what would you say that future, will look like?
Yeah. I think the future of SEO, as long as there are websites, there will be SEO. And we've heard SEO is going to be dead, I mean, 10 years. I've heard that 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, here's an SEO killer. It will never kill it. I think a lot of the kind of more spammy, blasting links, doing all the fun stuff that we did back in the day, like that, I think is dead. I think now more it's either you're focusing on really strong, really good, high quality content, or SEO is getting pushed more in at least our world into the product realm. So product management and SEO product management is kind of this new or new-ish thing that some companies are doing and some companies aren't. I think that SEO is going to be less of a marketing activity and more of a product activity where it's an investment in the product, or at least in how the product is implemented, for SEO professionals to be working with designers, working with the engineers who are building these to do it in a scalable, efficient, correct way. Where if we're spending the money to maintain these products, like we can leverage these products to generate SEO or generate value by taking user input, creating additional pages and additional value, and kind of pushing that out in the world. So I think SEO is going to move a lot stronger in the product direction for kind of larger, particularly marketplaces, but larger companies, larger websites. And then you're going to have that focus still on really strong, high quality content. And I think we both know, we've seen AI content. I think you can kind of tell when you read it. And I think users and readers are really smart and discerning. And if they come somewhere and they see this, frequently they're like, okay, I can't trust this brand anymore. Or they're taking a shortcut. They're giving me garbage. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I agree with most of the things that you said there. The last question I have for you: where can people find out more and get in touch if they'd like to?
Yeah, LinkedIn is going to be probably the best place. Not a big social media person, but I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. So
that's great. We will drop it in the show notes. Brian, that was all very insightful. Thank you very much for coming on and like sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to a follow-up discussion like this.
Yeah, thank you, George. Appreciate it.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part: you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.